Hey everyone, it's Caitlin and welcome to another video. Today we are meal prepping and I am back at it with another easy vegan meal prep video. So as always, I'm going to show you 3 different recipes that you could use for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can take this as inspiration, maybe make 1 or 2 of these recipes, maybe add in some tweaks based on things you have in your own pantry. Do with it what you want, but as always, all the recipes will be linked below and this is just a suggestion for you. So this meal prep, as I said, is vegan, but I also wanted to make a meal prep that was more pantry friendly because I know some people might always not have access to a ton of fresh produce. And I also just wanted to make a meal prep that was centered around some staple vegan ingredients or things that you could easily find at any grocery store, whatever store you're going to. So we're not going to be using any fancy vegan products or any specific brandings. You should be able to find everything at your local grocer. So hopefully that inspires you to go out and try to eat more plant-based foods, whether you're vegan or not, because at the end of the day, I just want to encourage everyone to eat more plants. So let's get on to the recipes. I'll show you what we're making. For breakfast, we are going to be making some baked carrot cake oatmeal. It's basically like eating carrot cake, but it's breakfast, so I'm all for it. To start out, you're going to add some non-dairy milk into a bowl. You can use store-bought or homemade. And then we're also going to add in some ground flax, some maple syrup for sweetness, a little vanilla extract, and then our carrot cake spices plus some baking powder. All of the exact measurements are listed in the blog post, which is linked below. So we're just gonna take a whisk and whisk everything until the spices like slightly dissolve. The cinnamon's not gonna dissolve totally just yet, but that's okay. I just like to mix them a little first because it means they're more evenly incorporated once we fold in our dry ingredients. So we're going to do that now. First, we're gonna add some rolled oats. I like to use rolled oats versus quick oats because they have a much heartier and not mushy texture. Then we're also going to add in some grated carrot, some chopped walnuts. You could also use pecans too. And then we're also going to add in some raisins. This is optional if you're a raisin hater. You could totally use dates or dried cherries. But once that's all in the bowl, we're just going to use a spoon to mix it together until everything is pretty evenly distributed. So you can place this mixture in a 9x13 pan or similar size. This one is just round. We're just gonna add it in and then use a spoon to flatten everything and make it nice and even. The liquid sort of separates from the dry ingredients at this point, but it'll all bake up nicely and evenly once it goes in the oven. I just like to top my oatmeal with a little bit more of the topping so it looks prettier once it comes out. That's totally optional. Either way, you're gonna bake it in the oven and it comes out nice and golden and delicious. So you can serve this hot or cold. If you want to, you can serve it right away. Just take a spoon, maybe use like a spatula, I don't know. And you can serve it however you'd like. I personally like to serve it with some extra nuts and toasted coconut on the side, and then add a drizzle of non-dairy milk. The baked oats really absorb it nicely. And then if I'm feeling indulgent, I'll add a little dollop of coconut yogurt as well. So that's it for this recipe. It's great for meal prep. It's great for a fancy occasion. Great for everything. And if you are going to store it for meal prep, I just recommend storing it in a glass container in the fridge and then topping it later so it doesn't get soggy. Next up, we're going to be making a feel-good red lentil soup. I love this recipe. I've been making a lot recently because it's full of simple, nourishing ingredients and it tastes really good, but you just feel good when you eat it too. Okay, so to start out, we're going to add some oil to a pan. You can use water if you'd like, if you're oil free. And then we're going to add in half of a diced yellow onion and just cook this down over medium-high heat until the onion becomes translucent. And then at this point, we're going to add in some aromatics. We have some garlic and some ginger, and you just need to saute these for about 60 seconds or so to get their flavor, but we don't want them to burn. And then from here, we're going to add in some spices. I'm just using some turmeric and cayenne pepper today. I love the flavor that turmeric adds, plus it's very anti-inflammatory and, you know, good for you. So yeah, that's all we're adding. We're just sauteing the spices a bit to sort of dry toast them. I'm also adding in some black pepper here and a pinch of salt. And yeah, I actually forgot to add the carrots earlier, so I'm adding them now, but you can add the carrots in with the spices. So just add them to the pan and cook them for a little bit just so they brown a bit around the edges and get nice and cooked as well. Then at this point, we're going to add in our red lentils. I just rinse them under some water really quickly. And then we're going to add in some vegetable broth and a touch of water just to make the soup a little bit more runny. Mix everything together and then bring this to a boil over high heat. And then you can reduce the heat to medium-low and just let this simmer for about 15 to 18 minutes or until the red lentils are tender. And you can choose to leave the soup chunky if you like. I personally like to blend it to make it more creamy. So I'm just using an immersion blender here, and I'm not blending it all the way so there's still some texture in the soup. But you can, of course, blend it to whatever thickness serves you. But this is what it looks like once it's done. We have one more final step here, which is to add some lemon juice. This adds some brightness and freshness to the recipe, and I really think it adds that pop that makes it really yummy and delicious. So you can serve the soup however you'd like. My personal favorite way to enjoy it is topped with some fresh cilantro and a crack of black pepper. It's also good with some bread on the side. If you want to make it a little heartier, you can add in some rice or serve it over rice, and you can also add in other vegetables like sweet potatoes, peas. It's a very forgiving recipe. I just love it because it's nice and warm and cozy, and I don't know, it's kind of like my vegan version of chicken noodle soup with no chicken or noodles, but you know, I don't know. Are storing this for meal prep, I just recommend storing it in a glass container and reheating as necessary. And then last but not least, for dinner, we're going to be making some beet burgers. I love this recipe. It's very simple and delicious. We're also going to be making beet burger bowls, and I'm going to be serving them with some roasted sweet potatoes. So we're going to get those in the oven first. Basically, to make sweet potato fries, I just cut the ends off of the sweet potatoes and then cut them into wedges. If you like the wedges to be smaller, you can cut them smaller. If you prefer rings, you can go ahead and do that. I personally like to keep the peels on my fries, but again, you can peel them if you want. Either way, you're just going to cut them till they're all roughly the same size, and then I transfer them onto a baking tray lined with a silicone mat. And here I just sprayed them with a little bit of avocado oil so the tops would get crispy. Otherwise, I find that they dry out too much in the oven. And then to keep things pretty simple, I just added a sprinkle of some flaky salt and some black pepper, and then pop those into the oven. And then also in the meantime, I prepped some quinoa on the stovetop. I just added 1 part quinoa, 2 parts water, and cooked it on the stove according to the package directions. But now we're going to get into the beet burgers. I love this recipe because it's made with a lot of pantry staples. So to start out, we're going to need to shred some beets. I personally prefer to use the grater on my food processor. I find it to be a lot faster and also a lot less messy, and it won't stain your hands as much. So if you have that, it saves a lot of time. I would totally recommend it. We're going to grate our beets and then just set these aside. We're going to use the food processor for the rest of the burgers as well. So you're going to return the food processor to its base and then add the traditional S blade in here. And then we're going to start with the rest of our burgers. We're going to add some walnuts and some rolled oats to our food processor, along with a little bit of ground flaxseed. This is going to be the base for our burgers to hold everything together and add some nice texture. And then we're also going to add some spices. Again, the full ingredients are listed in the recipe that's linked below. Then we're just going to pulse this all together till we form an even meal. It's okay if there's still some texture in there. Then we're going to add in some white beans. I'm using cannellini beans, but any other white bean will work. You could also use pinto beans or black beans. You just want a softer and creamy bean versus one that's harder like chickpeas. And then we're also going to add in some garlic cloves and a little bit of tamari. And then we're going to add in those shredded beets that we just used our food processor to shred earlier. And then we're going to pulse everything together. So you're going to need to scrape the sides on this mixture a few times just to make sure the dry ingredients are incorporating evenly with the beets. But you know, just keep repeating this process, and you're going to pulse everything until it's mostly broken down. You're still going to have some chunks from maybe some beet shreds and maybe some beans, but that's okay. It's just going to add some texture to the beets. But this is generally the texture we're looking for once the mixture is done. It's also this bright, vibrant pink color, which I just think is really pretty. So we're all set with this. Now we're going to place it onto a baking tray. So again, I lined a baking tray with a silicone mat. And here I'm using a cookie scoop to scoop out my burgers just so they're even in size. You want between 1/3 of a cup to 1/2 a cup for each burger. So you're going to place them on your tray and then use slightly damp hands to flatten them out and form your patties. You can make these smaller if you want. They'll just need less time in the oven. Then we're going to bake these babies in the oven, and then once they come out looking nice and golden brown and crispy, they are all set. And at about this time, our sweet potato fries to be nice and done too. I like them when they're about this step, so they're still kind of golden and brown on the top. They're not too crispy. You could cook them longer if you'd like as well. And then also at about this time, our quinoa should be nice and cooked, so you can go ahead and fluff that with a fork or spatula. And then it's just time to assemble our bowls. Obviously, you could just make these as beet burgers, but I didn't have any burger buns, and I actually like these in bowls with other grains as well. So here I'm just adding some spinach to a Tupperware, and then I'm adding in that cooked quinoa. Then I'm going to top it off with a beet burger. You could use 2 beet burgers if you're a little bit more hungry. Then we're going to add in our roasted sweet potato wedges. And then last but not least, we want a sauce to sort of bring everything together. So I'm using my easy tahini dressing. This recipe is on my blog. I'll link it down below. But you could top this with hummus, mustard, ketchup. Really, the burger is very versatile, and you can just use whatever grains or veggies you have on hand. I just wanted to provide an option for this. Alright guys, that is it for this video. As always, I really appreciate it when you like this video. Leave a comment below, and if you're not already subscribed to my channel, you can go ahead and click the little button down there. I also have a vegan meal prep playlist, so if you're looking for more inspiration, you can check out all of those videos as well. There are already a ton in there. Like, you might even be set to meal prep for an entire year if you just look at them. But that's it. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I really, truly do appreciate it. And I hope you're having an awesome day so far. Hope you continue to stay awesome. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.